Okay. First of all, welcome to Adam, who's going to speak to us. And I am just going to spend 5 minutes or so giving everybody an update on my elm tree planting project. I say our, I should say, shouldn't I? But although it's become a bit of my my baby, as it were. It's just to recap, the idea of the elm tree planting project is to celebrate the work of our groups and allow people to have the opportunity to plant an elm near them. So we've been approached by people around the county, and people have, in the main, as individuals, as it's turned out, although we thought when we started the project that it would be perhaps parish councils and more a group thing, but it's turned out to be a more individual thing. It's turned out to be a more individual planting where people have the land to plant, and then where people have wanted elm trees, they've been supplied by Peter Shallcross generally, although I've got another gentleman who's got elms available still, who's in Tisbury. A couple of weeks ago, I went over to see Peter. In the way of things, he wasn't there, but his father was there, and I saw his elm stock, which is still very, very large. He's got a large stock of elms available planting over in Tisbury, and they're being heeled in for the winter, so that they'll be available when the next growing season comes around, because obviously we're coming to the end of the planting season, which unfortunately, because of the conditions we've had, has proved to be a very short season, because no one could plant really hardly before Christmas, because it was so mild. And then since Christmas, of course, it's been a deluge. So we've now got the opposite problem of actually getting the plants into the ground and hoping they're not going to be flooded away. So despite all those difficulties, we've made some progress. And what we've ended up with is a few little clusters around which elms have been planted. So this has involved a school, community wood, but mainly individuals who've got in touch and has told their particular story as to why they want an elm. And very much part of the project is to write up and publicise what that story is, and give them the credit for anything else they're doing as part, if it's gone in as part of another project. So Julian, if you could just share my very amateurish map that I created. I managed to get a map of Wiltshire, but I haven't managed to learn how to scan on this laptop. It refuses to let me scan anything or do very many things. So I'm afraid you've got a very amateurish map to look at, just to show you where the little clusters of planting are. Right. Yes. So if you can see, you can't actually see the different colours there, but if you look, oh, thank you, Julian. You can now see some are kind of vaguely yellow and some are vaguely white. And the white are the ones to come. But we've got a little cluster. If you look in the northwest, we've got a cluster of elms which were planted around at Culerne, near Bath, near Box. And that's where Culerne School was involved. I went up and planted with the school children there, and in a wood called Frank's Wood. So there's 5 trees up there. We've got a little cluster down near Salisbury now, southeast of Salisbury, around Farley, and more to go, which I was just arranging today in West Grimstead. And then we've got some near Calm, some up on a farm between Chippenham and Swindon up here, up to the top. And then we've got more in the pipeline of where I've put those little question marks. So they're little clusters, and what's happening, for example, in Calne, when we did the planting, somebody came along and thought, oh, I've got a bit of space, I want one. So again, there'll be more. So that's how it's working out. People see that there's one down the road, and then there's a little cluster emerging of different places where people can fit them in. So that's how it's going. We don't really have the bandwidth to do loads and loads of elms, and it does take a lot of time liaising and getting the elms delivered, and especially doing the write-up and making sure everybody's happy. If you're going to take pictures of children doing it, you've got to be sure you've got the parental consent to the pictures, and that the children may or may not be allowed to be identified, that sort of thing. So it's sort of quite fiddly as a project to do in that way. But I reckon we've got about 25 elms in, more in the pipeline. And now what we need to do, because there is a big stock of elms available to us, and Peter is doing this on a much bigger scale. He seems to be driving around the country delivering lots and lots of elms to locations all over, I'm quite sure, in Wales and all over the place. But what we are doing, bearing in mind it's to celebrate the work of and the stories of the people who are doing this, and to highlight their involvement with environmental work, then what we need to do is to now decide who would like to have them in the autumn. And I'm hoping, for example, Devizes Parish Council, there seems to be a lot of discussion, but once you have a parish council, some people are in favour, some people aren't. They might do a line of trees, or they may decide not to do anything at all. So progress has been really with individuals, but it would be nice next winter to make more progress with parish councils or groups or more schools, for example. So that's where we are with it. So it's fun to do, and it's fun to meet the people, but it is time consuming. So that's my summary of the Elms project. Has anybody would like to ask anything briefly about it?
I see Mel's comment in the chat.
Yeah, yes, I saw that, Mel. Thank you. Very probably. I was talking to the people involved today. So if you'd like to be involved, I'll let you know if we've got a date for going over. I said I'd go over and help them with it within the next couple of weeks, so they can get it in.
That'd be great. Yeah, thanks.
The weather changes to something completely different to what we've got now.
Also, Mel, I mean, you're obviously parish councillor, and are you sort of like involved in any network of parish councils? I mean, maybe you can help spread the word to other parish councils and things as well.
Yeah, sure. I can pass it on to the clerk, who is involved with the network of parish councils. So yeah, I probably need a bit more detail about how many are left and things, and maybe I'll get her speak to Claire separately about that.
Yes, yeah, that's a good idea. Yes. Okay, lovely. I mean, I think we would be a bit, if every parish council in Wiltshire got in touch, or even a large number of parish councils got in touch, it does generate a lot of work, because it's not just saying here's an elm tree, goodbye. It's more than that, and it's only a point to it if you have got the bandwidth to do the writing up. So, for example, the one near Calne, I haven't written up or put in the paper, even though that tree was planted in January. I had the time to do that. You should go back and write it up and do the press release for that, for example.
Yes, it may be that the timing should be sort of, before the next planting season rather than in now. But I mean, I'm sure we can work out those problems and, make it clear that parishes need to write it up themselves, to make.
Yes, parish. I mean, if it's a parish council, they're much more capable of doing their own storytelling about it, and then, sending it, and then it would make less work. But if it's an individual, you need to do the storytelling for them.
One thought, Claire, and that is the tree warden scheme. I'm a tree warden now, and Naomi Stiles at Wiltshire Council for South Wilts anyway. is the organizer for that, so she might be interested. Are you in touch with?
Yes, I haven't been in touch with her recently, but I am generally in touch with her about it. And also, you know, Jane Cooksey. You know Jane, because she's a tree warden. She's at Farley, so she's been helping me with these Farley ones. And but unfortunately, she's just broken her wrist. So I just fell headfirst in the mud, but she decided to break her wrist. So. Yes.
Claire, would you be able to send me some a little bit of soil literature, because I'm organising a hedgerow day.
Okay.
Which we're inviting farmers and landowners to come and learn the value of that.
Yeah.
And I mean, one of the things they'll be promoting is planting trees within hedges.
Yeah.
And obviously elms might be a good candidate for that, I'm assuming.
Yeah. Yes, very much so. Yes. Can you remind me of your email? Please put it in the chat for me.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Tony.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'll.
And also, we have in Bushton, we have a plant fair every May bank holiday, which is attended by hundreds and hundreds of people from around the area. And we have the wildlife group we have a little stand there, so I could promote it there as well. But
that would be nice. When did you say that was?
That's 5th of May.
5th of May.
The bank holiday.
Okay, right. All right, that would be great. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I think that's probably enough of me and elms for the moment. I seem to just do elms as in a tree and elms as in farming payments. That seems to be my life. But I'd much rather start hearing about the River Avon from Adam at this point. So again, thank you for joining us, Adam. And would you like to talk to us about your project? Just to say, I learned about your project, Adam, when I went down to Downton to the Christmas Tree Festival, to the church there, and there were your cards. And I thought, well, that's interesting. We've got a new project. And so I picked up the cards, and that's how I found you. And we worked I think it's probably nearly 2 years ago on the Green and Brew infrastructure issues in the Wiltshire Climate Alliance documentation, but we've never actually spent any time talking about rivers in this group. So welcome, you're going to tell us all about it. Thank you.
Brilliant. Yeah, well, yeah, thanks so much for inviting me along. And yeah, I'll see if I can share my screen. So bear with me. Can you see a lovely clean river?
Yep.
Perfect. So yeah, apologies for anyone that's come to hear about the Bristol Avon. Someone had a silly idea of naming every river Avon and having 2 river Avons in Wiltshire, which can get very confusing. But yeah, I'm actually not planning on talking very specifically about the Hampshire or Salisbury Avon. So a lot of it is relevant to other rivers as well. So I'm Adam Ellis. I run a small community interest company called Flow, so for the love of water. So it's a not-for-profit company. And I'm going to tell you a little bit, this is what I'm going to do, a little bit about myself and Flow. Why rivers? Obviously, rivers is a very big topic. You know, we could go on for hours. I won't. We'll just give a very quick overview and then have time for questions afterwards. I will talk you through just a couple of projects I've been involved with. I've only been operating for about a year, so it's all quite new. So just a couple of the more community action projects that I've been involved with. And then, yeah, we'll have time for questions and discussions. There's only a few of us, so if there's any burning questions as I'm going, put your hand up or just shout out. If I see you, just chip in. So about me, so I've been working in the environmental sector, rivers, for about 20 years. And kind of running fisheries before that. So I started mad keen angler. I've just been working in this sector ever since, for the Environment Agency, for consultancies, for contracting firms. So yeah, on the right there, radio tracking crayfish like you do. At the top, working physically restoring rivers. So in there with diggers and dumpers, putting gravels back in, kind of fixing those habitat problems. the bottom right, electric fishing surveys around the country, measuring fish and looking at health of rivers. And yeah, I've tried to pass that on to my children. You can see there, one with a big fish and one happily with a head underwater in the river, hopefully not getting poorly. So yeah, very much all about rivers, whether it's working or fun. So about a year or 18 months ago now, I set up Flow. I've been working in commercial organizations for quite a long time. I really wanted to have more of an impact locally. As all aware of the kind of climate crisis, biodiversity crisis, I felt like I really wanted to do something with tangible benefits. So I set up Flow, which I do commercial work, which pays me and pays for my time. And then I get to run my own projects as well, and hopefully get grant funding at some point as well to fund other things. So yeah, a bit like the work the Rivers Trust and the Wildlife Trust do, but yeah, kind of funded ourselves. So our main objectives, we're collecting data and helping communities collect data on the river health, inspiring ownership and engagement within the catchment. That's a particular problem we have within the Hampshire Avon. A lot of it is very private, so people don't necessarily have that connectivity with the river, physically or mentally. So trying to work on that, and then also working with landowners and stakeholders to improve the habitat of the river and yeah, make it more resilient. And that's a beautiful kingfisher with a minnow. So I'm going to talk very briefly about rivers. We can't talk about rivers in Wiltshire without talking about chalk rivers. Chalk rivers, you will know, are really rare internationally. I think we've got 85% of chalk rivers in the UK. I don't know what percentage of those are in Wiltshire, but it's probably quite a high percentage. So you can see on the left, we've got the green is the chalk band running up the country. Anyway, you've got that, you tend to have these chalk streams, chalk rivers, which are generally very clean. They're groundwater fed, really biodiverse, really special habitats, and we're absolutely blessed in Wiltshire for having lots of them. So we've got the Hampshire Avon at the bottom of that map, and you've got the Kennet, and so there's a debate on what is a chalk river. These are the ones that everyone agrees are chalk rivers. So you might disagree with them, but yeah, we've got lots of beautiful chalk rivers here, and we need to look after them and protect them. So what's important for river health? There's three main elements, and that it's difficult to say which one's more important. It depends who you talk to, but you need all three of these. So it's the analogy of the three-legged stool. You take one of those legs out, the stool falls over. So I'll start with water quality. That's what everyone's been talking about. You can't watch the news without somebody, whether it's Fergal Sharkey or someone mentioning kind of sewage pollution and water quality. So there's been a real focus on that recently, which is great. But it's only one of these three pillars. The other one's water quantity. We talk about drought and low flows. It's a difficult conversation to have at the moment with the flows we have. But we're seeing more extremes in weather, more extremes in flows. So very high flows, very low flows, both which stress the ecosystem in their own ways. So even though, see, we've got very high water levels at the moment, we still need to be thinking about conserving water and protecting those summer levels. The third one, which is probably not talked about enough, is habitat. A lot of our rivers have been historically modified. We've been incredibly good at modifying our rivers over thousands of years. In Wiltshire, we have lots of mills, we have lots of water meadows. We've moved rivers to the side of floodplains, we put them in concrete walls. And yeah, once you kind of modify them to that extent, they struggle to find that equilibrium again without a bit of support. So yeah, thinking about river health, you need to be thinking about these three elements together, and for a really resilient, climate resilient river, which is what we want to be focusing on. So it's a lot of photos of my dog and my children in this. I apologize. talk about two projects we've been working on. They're both relating to water quality. I think that's just because when I started, that there was such an interest in it, and we've just gone down that route. So I'm hoping to pick up a bit more on the habitat side. But yeah, I'll talk about two elements to do with water quality. So the first one is we've set up a citizen science water quality monitoring program on the lower element of the Hampshire Avon, so Salisbury down. That's geographically just because I only had so much time and money, so we started there. So how did that start? This is Nacho, my dog, who comes out with me sampling and always looking at me grumpily saying, why aren't you going to finish? So this started, I mean, you will have seen it in the news, a lot about the River Wye, the pollution in there, and the great work that community groups and citizen scientists did to monitor, to look at the state of the river. So I kind of saw this in the news. I thought, well, we should probably be doing that locally. So I had a look at the data from the Environment Agency, who are the regulator in this country. They do lots of sampling, lots of water sampling, lots of ecology sampling. So I kind of download, all their data is available. You can download it all, open access. So the graph on the right just shows the number of water samples they've taken downstream of Salisbury since 2006. So you see there's quite a decline there in the number of samples that have been taken. They still take quite a lot. There's this misconception that the Environment Agency don't do any sampling now. That's definitely not the case, but it's gone down dramatically from what it was. Well, yeah, back when I worked at the Environment Agency, back at then, sort of 2006 time. So there's definitely a gap there. While they do go out and monitor, it might be once a month, or even a best case, probably once a week. A lot can happen in that time. So yeah, we developed a network of volunteers. I think we currently have about 15 volunteers that go out and sample their little section of river weekly. So yeah, we got a little bit of funding and put some money in ourselves and bought loads of lovely toys, loads of water quality monitoring kit. So this is my daughter Ivy helping me put all these kits together. So we have a standalone kit that each person has, and they go out and do all the measurements in the field or collect in a bottle and take it home. So they sample for nitrates, phosphates, the sort of nutrients that are affecting our rivers. Also ammonia, which can give an indication of sewage pollution or silage pollution or something like that. And yeah, temperature and conductivity. So our volunteers go out weekly normally and just record this information in an app, which comes back to a sort of central database. So that's been going for about a year now. I think we're up to about 380 samples, which is pretty good. And they're all in random places, random times. So you kind of pick up trends that you wouldn't see if you're just doing a monthly sample. So it's one of our samplers at the top there, that's Jane. We have a lot of samplers that have rivers gardens that back onto rivers. We also have the lower Avon farming cluster. So a lot of farmers within that cluster are doing sampling as well. So yeah, the diagram on the left, just the red spots are where we've had samples taken. So there's a big cluster around me. I'm based in Downton, right in the southern end of Wiltshire. So there's a big cluster. We've got a few of us that sample around there, and as you can see, we've got quite a good coverage below Salisbury, but it could be better. It's probably worth pointing out. So there's the blue dots on that plan as well. They're collected using the same methodology by various angling clubs. The Angling Trust is a sort of governing body for angling clubs. Set up a fantastic scheme where they have hundreds of anglers across the country that are collecting similar data. So this just shows the points that their members are collecting data from as well. On top of that, we also have, again, I mentioned the lower Avon farming cluster. There's other farming clusters, one on the River Wye. Again, they collect their own samples monthly. They've got their own lab. They're looking at doing similar on the River Nadder and on the Ebble. So massive collection of data, whether you call it citizen science or practitioner science. It's a massive data set that guess we're looking at how we bring that together and use all that data now. So on the right there, I've just plotted the phosphate data for all of the sites collected so far. So the red dotted line, that's what the river should be. So the river Avon, Hampshire Avon, is a triple SI and a SAC, which are pretty much the highest level of protection any river can have in this country. So as part of that, to meet its favourable condition, the average phosphate levels need to be below that level, which clearly they're not, and that's not a surprise. We know there's a problem with phosphates in the catchment, and there's lots of work being done about that. But what we didn't know before we started doing this is how we were getting some really big spikes. So where you see the big spikes that's showing 2.5 up there, I mean, that's not 2.5, that's as high as our readings go. So we're getting individual pollutions coming through that just weren't being recorded before. So all these, anything above 1 there is reported to the Environment Agency. And yeah, well, to be completely honest, we're working with what we deal with those events, how we deal with that, how we investigate it. But yeah, we're definitely seeing events that can't be explained. So yeah, collecting lots of data. The challenge is now what to do with it. And it's been a great engagement tool, getting everyone, lots of people in the community going down, doing water samples, looking at the looking for pollution and reporting that back. So yeah, we've got fantastic volunteers, and they absolutely love it. Awful photo. So the other thing we've been doing, I fell into this completely by accident. I'm not a river swimmer, I'm not a wild swimmer, unless it's really, really hot, it's 30 degrees like it is here. But I kind of accidentally got talking to Surfers Against Sewage, who some of you might have heard of, a fantastic organisation. And they've been promoting community groups to get their inland waterways designated as a bathing water. You may or may not know much about that. There's, I think, 3 inland bathing waters at the moment, lots around the coast. What that means, if a river has bathing water status, it gets monitored weekly throughout the bathing water season for fecal indicator organisms, so things like E. coli. And if it fails based on those, it drives further improvement within the catchment, so investigating where this pollution is coming from, and driving improvements to stop it, to make that water cleaner. So yeah, I was talking to Surfers Against Sewage, and really you should be able to swim in a triple SI chalk river and put your head underwater like this without worrying about getting sick, and that's definitely not the case. So we decided to try and do something about that. So this is, I'm afraid we're out of the county now, this is Fordingbridge, just into Hampshire. But this, it's probably one of the most popular, well, it's definitely the most popular spot on the river for people getting in and using it. Some swimming, mostly just paddling, like you can see here. Although you do have a die-hard group of wild swimmers that have been going all winter. They'll go any conditions. But yeah, really popular swimming spot here. So we thought this would be an ideal candidate for an inland bathing water. So we set up a little group called Fordingbridge Avon Bathing, which is made up of Fordingbridge Greener Living and myself, Flo, with a lot of support from Surfers Against Sewage, the town council there, and the wild swimmers. So it's a bit of a crash course back in April last year. Just how do we do this? Or where do you start? So to get a water designated, the goalposts change slightly, but you have to demonstrate certain criteria, and there has to be certain facilities. So changing facilities, toilet facilities, car parking nearby, and you also have to demonstrate the water is used by a certain amount of people. So to do that, we had to demonstrate that on 2 days, 2 separate days, there were over 100 people using the river, which in a normal summer would be really easy in the summer holidays. But yeah, last summer was a little bit of a washout, wasn't it? And it was right at the end of the summer holidays. We got our 2 days, and I think we got over 200 on one of the days. So we yeah, managed to meet that criteria. So we packaged all this up, sent it to DEFRA, and you probably saw in the news a few weeks ago, they released that 27 sites have been put forward for designation. There's been, which includes ours. There's been a consultation, some of you may have seen, which ended last week. So we should hear in the next couple of weeks if we're successful. As I said, if we're successful, it means it's the river's monitored, and hopefully we can drive some improvements. So why we want this in Fordingbridge, it became clear the more I got involved. You'll probably all know about CSOs, combined sewer overflows. There's a great Rivers Trust map, if you haven't seen it, the link's at the bottom there, where you can look at where these are near you. So these are kind of overflows for the sewage system, effectively raw sewage, diluted to a degree, entering the river. So this photo on the left was taken a few weeks ago using a drone. This is about 200 meters upstream of that really popular swimming spot where everyone loves to go in. This particular CSO, you can see the numbers here. 2021 has been operating for 400 hours, then 181 hours. We haven't got the data for 2023 yet, but this year already, because I get the live alerts now, it's been over 300 hours. This has pretty much been operating, well, yeah, since December, with the heavy rainfall we've been having. So yeah, we've taken some samples downstream of here, which it shows on the right. Again, those aren't the real figures. That's just what the little checkers that we use, that's what they max out at. So really, really high nutrient levels, really high ammonia. I mean, ammonia, anything over 1 milligram per litre starts getting quite toxic for fish, and this is over 3.5. Yeah, this is immediately downstream, so there is dilution. But yeah, this shouldn't be like this. So yeah, we're hoping with the designation, there can be further monitoring and kind of really ramp up investment in sites like this. And this site isn't unique. You know, it's all across our catchments. So as part of the program to get designated surface against sewage funded lab analysis of water samples. So again, as I mentioned before, looking at the fecal indicator organisms, so E. coli and enterococci, which are easily grown in a lab in a petri dish. So over the whole summer, we've been taking samples and sending them off to a lab, and this shows the results. So these are counts. So the top it's E. coli and the bottom of it's enterococci. Don't ask me what the difference is. They're different organisms which indicate levels of pathogens and viruses within the water. So as you can see, generally it's pretty low. I mean, kind of anything below 400 is pretty good. So all through the summer, mostly when people are bathing, it's pretty good, and I wouldn't have concerns about sending my kids in. But after it rains, they go through the roof. So again, these show 1,000. They stop counting after 1,000. So these are probably much higher. So this is generally after high rainfall events, which, you know, again, it's not news. You know, wild swimmers always say, you know, leave it a few days after heavy rainfall. But there's enough of these poor events within these sites that when you put it through, there's an algorithm for working out bathing water status. We put that through, and the 3 sites we took readings at, which was Salisbury, Queen Elizabeth Gardens, Millennium Green in Downton, and Fordingbridge, all came out as poor bathing water status, which I really wasn't expecting. Yeah, especially for a triple SI chalk river, but yeah, it was quite shocking to me, and that really shouldn't be the case. And I guess the harsh reality is that would probably be the case for almost all rivers in this country, almost certainly the Bristol Avon as well, just because of those high levels you're getting in rainfall events, which may come from CSOs. A portion will be from agriculture, can be other sources, septic tanks, things like that. So yeah, not ideal. But yeah, I had fantastic volunteers again that have been out, collecting all these water samples. So if you're interested, if you've got a bit of river where people like to paddle and swim, I guess probably critically where the landowner is happy for that to happen, we certainly don't suggest people trespass. You can look at getting that site designated as well. I mentioned the criteria for sites, which does limit it slightly, but that criteria can change, and I know Surfers Against Sewage are pushing for that criteria to change, for it not to be quite so rigid. Even if you don't strictly meet those criteria now, if you've got the energy and the time, I'd say go for it, because you can monitor it, you can raise awareness. So yeah, definitely worth looking at the Surfers Against Sewage website. It's protectingwildwaters.org.uk. I can share all these links afterwards. And if you spot pollution or something's not quite right, please ring the Environment Agency. I think people are reluctant to do that, or they think nothing will happen. Even if the Environment Agency don't come out straight away, it's all logged, and it all leads to positive action in the end. So yeah, please make sure you encourage people to do that. You can ring water companies as well, but make sure you ring the Environment Agency. So again, I'm assuming you're all people that like to get involved and like to make a difference. So I thought I'd just suggest some of the ways you can do that on rivers and some of the really successful schemes. So I mentioned citizen science sampling. There's other ways you can do that. So there's the Riverfly Partnership, where people go out and take a kick sample in the river and look at the bugs that are there each month, and that gives you a really good indication of water quality. So you can get involved with that. Probably Wiltshire Wildlife Trust are the people to talk to, and there are various other kind of water quality monitoring schemes. There's Freshwater Watch, and I mentioned the Angling Trust scheme. Obviously, you can get involved with me if you're in the south of the county as well. The other thing you can do is there's lots of apps now for recording data, and these are really useful. So I mentioned habitat being a problem with rivers. One of those big problems is obstacles within channels, which really affects connectivity for fish migration for all species. And it really affects the functioning of a river. So you can get this app, River Obstacles, and kind of record all your little weirs and hatches and things, which is really good. And it's amazing that you're always finding ones that aren't on there. So I suggest giving that a go when you're walking along the river. Another one, which again is becoming more useful, is Mammal Mapper, and particularly if you're out and about on any rivers where you're seeing beaver signs. We do have obviously wild beavers in Wiltshire now. There's a section on here where you can record beaver field signs, which if you've seen them before, that they're not particularly discreet. I think you can't miss them. So that's a really good one. Yeah, I think it'd be really useful to start recording where these feeding signs are, so we can start looking at territories. And the other one there is an invasive species mapper, so looking at invasive plant species and things like that particularly. Yeah, getting people to do that is really valuable, having lots of eyes on the ground. So yeah, they're really good. And yeah, also volunteering. So Wiltshire Wildlife Trust, the obvious ones, they do loads of great work with volunteers. You've also got Wessex Rivers Trust, which cover the Avon. Yeah, think about it, you've got 3 rivers trusts. You've got the Wessex Rivers Trust, you've got Bristol Avon Rivers Trust, and Action for River Kennet. So depending on where you are, I think talk to them. And I think they all do volunteering works as well. You can kind of get involved in that capacity. So take-home messages. Get involved if you can. Citizen science volunteering. I am really addicted to taking water samples now, taking the dog for a walk in the morning and doing a bit of science before you start work. I think is a really good way to start the day. So I recommend it. Don't accept pollution. This shifting baseline concept where you start accepting what you see regularly. Don't accept it. If you see something that's not right, report it to the EA, kick up a fuss, look at what your local water company's plans are, and just demand that it's better. I think if everyone does that, the world will be a better place. The other side of that coin is taking responsibility and educating. I mean, we're all users of water. So when we talk about abstraction, it's being abstracted for us to use. So I'm sure I'm preaching to the converted here, but yeah, really promoting sustainable water use. The other side of that is sustainable drainage. You know, not having every bit of water going down the drain to a combined sewer. It's not having everything paved over. So really having a better functioning kind of system. And then encouraging natural floodplains. So obviously people think of a river, it's the bit with water in all year round, but the river and the floodplain that should be connected. That's how they want to be. They want to be messy, they want to have bits of wood in, they want to be kind of connected with the floodplain. So they're going to be much more resilient to climate change if we can have kind of natural river systems. I mentioned, yeah, but both the Wildlife Trust and the Rivers Trust do loads of work physically restoring these degraded rivers. So yeah, you can go and help them, get involved, get some waders on and put some wood in the river. I highly recommend it if you're into that kind of thing. And that's me. So I've rattled through that, but yeah, if anyone's got any questions, I'd be happy to try and answer them. Work out how to stop sharing my screen.
Right. Well, thank you very much, Adam. You've been extremely busy for an organisation that's been, you know, going a relatively short time. My question is, because I live in Salisbury, my immediate question, what everybody else thinks what they want to ask, is does any of that well, two things. Number one, it looked to me as because your piece of Avon me downwards has so many tributaries. I noticed you had someone monitoring on the Bourne. Do you need a lot more monitors up those other up the Ebble, up the Nadder and so on, because you're trying to work out something that's an amalgamation of 5 rivers, aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess the key element for me is plugging gaps where people aren't monitoring. So yeah, we have the farming clusters that are setting up their own monitoring schemes. I'm supporting some of those. So yeah, those main tributaries, the Nadder, the Wiley, the Ebble, are probably going to have quite good coverage. The Bourne less so. So we'd love to have more sampling on the Bourne.
More sampling on the Bourne. Okay.
Yeah, there's lots of tributaries further down that go into the New Forest, and some tributaries that go on the other side as well, and that have very little monitoring. Unfortunately, we're kind of limited by funding at the moment. We have far more people that want to go out and do this than we can afford to get kits for. So that's a challenge for me to try and find funding for that. And yeah, whether we can find kind of businesses to sponsor those. So yeah, that's my next challenge, because it's horrible to say no to people that want to go out and do the sampling.
Okay, Bill, did you want to ask something? You're muted. Bill?
Yeah. Thank you, Claire. Yeah, a couple of things. Really interesting, and really what a challenging job you've got, to say the least. Because you've got a lot of people inputting to the problem. I mean, we're included in that in one way or another, as we all waste our water down the sink somewhere, and it goes somewhere into the river at some point. Just a couple of general things. Well, we come back to the last thing you said about funding. Have you tried, just a question, have you tried Wiltshire Council Area Board?
No, but I'm writing that down.
They will give grants, small grants, so up to £5,000. So
okay, that's really interesting. It's all quite new to me, so I come from a more commercial background. So yeah. Finding where these pots of money are I'm still learning. So yeah, that's really interesting.
Yeah, and I would try any town council, parish council or whatever that's on the river, and try and get something from each of them. That's a bit of work, because you've got to work out which parishes are, and then get hold of the clerk and get your. But all the parishes will have a budget for their little area, and will be able to give some money, I believe, especially if they've got some concerns about it. So it's definitely worth asking them.
Yeah, that's really useful, and certainly it's anyone that lives near the river. It's high up on their priority list. They really care about it and really want to do something about it.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
we have been talking to some of the parish councils, and they've been quite supportive.
Yeah.
I guess the other thing is we've been trying to promote people to go, and might not appeal to everyone, but go and have a look around their sewage treatment works. And do tours. I really recommend it because you mentioned people taking responsibility, and I think it's really valuable to see how they work and to see how we're part of the problem. So that's something you can do as well. And we're kind of talking to parish councils about organising those trips, and Wessex Water have been really open to do those as well, and organise special visits. So I recommend doing that if you can.
Yeah, I built one or two, so
Have you?
Yeah, one particular one in Foy where it was really, really difficult to deal with it because every time the tide came in, it went up the sewage pipes. And when you're treating water that's 70% or 80% seawater, it doesn't do much for your treatment works.
No, okay. I imagine. Okay.
Interesting. I mean, the same problem I heard the other day because of flooding and things. So people are saying that you've got water dilution in the pipes just because they're all leaky. And the same sort of problem. You get highly diluted material going into the sewage works. It's got to be hugely more volume going through the sewage because the sewers that exist either have a loose cover that allows the water in, or the pipes themselves leak.
That's it, and that's in groundwater catchments like Wiltshire. It's a big problem. As soon as the groundwater comes up, it leaks into the pipes. So these combined sewer overflow events, they're generally not linked to single rainfall events. It's when the groundwater comes to a certain level. So there's a lot of work to seal pipes, but I think it's a bit of a losing battle. I think it's quite difficult.
but that's because of lack of investment. I mean, they just haven't bothered to change Victorian underground pipe work, and it's going to leak, like I said, isn't it? So, and they don't go around having sealed manhole lids, which they should do, etc., etc. All sorts of things water companies should be doing and haven't been doing the last 30 years.
Yeah, well, get in contact.
Another subject altogether. Anyway, I'm glad I'm not in it anymore. Another question about sampling. You talked about 3 or 4 organisations that have taken samples or are taking. Who's collating them all?
It's a really good question. So it's all kind of shared with the Environment Agency 3 different ways. But we're looking, and Wessex Rivers Trust particularly are looking at ways we can kind of get that in one central place, because it's great, isn't it, having all this data, but if you're not using it, it's pointless. There's work to do that, and nationally there's kind of work being done through the National Rivers Trust to try and have more of a centralized platform for recording all of this, as well as, I guess, centralized standards for making sure it's of a certain quality, because you want to be able to rely on it. That's a work in progress, but it's definitely not finished yet. So hopefully a year's time I'll give a better answer.
A staggering statement, considering we're in the 21st century, and we're data rich and information poor, and we're not sharing it, and we haven't been sharing it. Crazy, absolutely crazy. Sorry, I'll carry on a little bit if nobody minds. Another question about what's a magic bullet that we should be all pushing for with water companies and others who pollute in terms of the water, like farmers and whatever. What should we be demanding? Take a farmer, a chicken farmer. Should we be demanding that they have their own water treatment works, for example, before any water goes into the river, instead of just discharging it? Is that sort of legislative thing we should be pushing for?
I mean, my experience as a farmer, certainly in the south of the county, they're all really good, and they'd be mortified if they kind of thought they were causing any pollution. So it's definitely not tarring all farmers with the same brush.
So they've already got their own treatment works.
Well, it's probably to do with I guess the types of farming. If you've got intensive chicken farms or pig farms, it's a bit different, isn't it? I know the Environment Agency are really ramping up their farm checks now, aren't they? And that advice that they can give, and there's lots of subsidies, there's lots of help for farmers to farm in an environmental way and look after water courses. So yeah, it's
But there's no way of telling whether they are doing it or not. It gets back to your monitoring, doesn't it?
well, it goes back to monitoring, yeah, and kind of picking up, yeah, and I know that they have on some of the catchments. We can't go into any detail, but they have picked up, yeah, kind of point sources from individual properties. So yeah, this kind of level of monitoring can pick that up, definitely. And the riverfly monitoring that I mentioned is really quite sensitive. By looking at the different bugs you get in the water,
Yeah,
kind of pick up, you know, longer term, more chronic pollution within the river.
yeah. Right, we saw something like on Countryfire last night, actually.
Oh, okay, yeah, I think that was
Marlborough Downs.
Yeah,
In the Marlborough Downs, yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, with farms, I get that you have these farming clusters which are coming together with a real environmental focus. So seeing lots of really good work, and they're getting lots of government funding to do really positive environmental work.
One final thing, then I'll shut up. Bathing water areas in the stream. When there's 200 people in the water, are you monitoring downstream?
So it's definitely, see what you're inferring. I mean, it's definitely been flagged up, and it might be that it doesn't get designated because it's a triple SI and SAC. National England might feel that this poses too much of a risk to the river. You can obviously get things like chemicals from sun cream and things which can go in the river. Everything I've read is it's negligible in a moving water course. So yeah, it's probably not ideal, but I think getting that many people engaged and passionate about the river is worth that little bit of disturbance in the summer months. Because if you haven't got these kids loving the river and getting in there, splashing, catching bullheads, and they're not going to protect it, are they? If you've got,
I understand that. I was being
but no, you're right, and that.
And in the summer you've got low volume flowing through as well.
Yeah, and there's been discussion being will it impact salmon spawning and things like that. It could, obviously, that's outside of when most people are in the river anyway. So there's definitely an education piece there about kind of wild swimming and doing it in a sensitive manner.
Yeah. Okay, I finished. Thank you very much. That's really good. Thank you very much for answering them.
It's all right.
Hello. I was just going to say, I have heard of in some counties where the councils have actually taken open water bathing as part of their amenity provision in order to achieve government targets on that. And therefore, they're actually got a vested interest in promoting the cleanliness and the monitoring. I don't know whether Wiltshire's likely to be friendly to that sort of approach.
Well, if anyone's got any contacts, ask them, because looking at potential other sites, Queen Elizabeth Gardens in Salisbury was probably the next one. Not really for swimmers, but in terms of numbers of kids that get in there in the summer. So there is potential to move that forward, but at the moment it's community groups that are pushing to do that themselves rather than council led. I think we are hearing some areas it's slightly different, as you say, where it's more local authority led. But yeah, it'd be great, and I'm happy to help out anyone that wants to do this locally. I think it's a really useful thing to do.
We can chase up the councillors.
But well, it might be that Salisbury City Council might have an interest in that in the Queen Elizabeth Gardens. It's such a massively used place, as you say. What's he called? My councillor, Councillor Wells. He might be interested in that. So.
But I think that there's been a bit of interest within community groups, but I think it is a time commitment, and people are worried about that. So I think if we can get enough people that maybe want to do it together, I think we could probably get a little team to do it if the council, the landowner, were on board. And I'm sure there's other sites, towards the north of the county where people get in there and swim and paddle, where it could be done as well. So
maybe I just ought to mention, just for those who don't know the Queen Elizabeth Gardens, it's right in the centre of the town. I was in there when I was a child. I took my kids to paddle there after they had their music lessons, and in the summer, and when it comes round to picnic in the park, people in the park, the Salisbury Transition event, which is on in May, there'll be loads and loads of kids in the river again. So I was always worried about broken glass. I must say, as a parent, I never really thought about the water quality, but I certainly think about it now. Right,
But
Julian.
from the sampling we did there, generally again is pretty good unless it rains, and then maybe give it a miss.
Julian.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, very interesting. I was really going to follow up a little bit more on the sources of pollution thing. Does the Environment Agency share what they find in terms of what's polluting the river? And you mentioned some work on phosphates being done and stuff. I mean, I'm thinking really of particularly agricultural pollution, where unwittingly or otherwise, there may be leaks occurring and things. And how does that work?
Yeah, so loads of work happens. So I guess the Environment Agency, if they're investigating something, they probably won't be talking about it, and those investigations can be quite ongoing. So I think there can be a frustration there with people thinking, well, they're not doing anything. They probably are, but they're gathering evidence. Lots of work being done, whether it's water companies, rivers trust, landowners, to look at diffuse agricultural pollution. This kind of upstream thinking concept where treat water upstream in the catchment rather than treating it treatment works, which makes a lot of sense, using nature-based solutions. So buffer strips, tree planting, lots of things like that. And I know Wiltshire Council are doing a lot with septic tanks and buffer strips at the moment. There's a lot of funding available if anyone has a septic tank, to try and improve those. So yeah, lots of work being done. I think as a sector, we're not very good at shouting about these things. Everyone's just kind of head down, focused on what they're doing. But yeah, a lot of work, and a lot of what has been done. I mean, it's difficult with rivers. I think everyone kind of assumes every river is an open sewer, which it's not, and it's not a kind of downward spiral on the Avon anyway. Phosphate levels were much higher 30 years ago. So they have reduced and kind of plateaued due to investments in water treatment works and better catchment management. But yeah, there's still a lot to do.
Okay, thanks.
I had another question for you, Adam, which was you had a lot of picture of your kids and things. They're young, and of interest to us as a group is how to engage young people or teenagers or anything like that. Are some of your samplers quite young? Are they sort of youngish? Are you actually got big children or
no? They're
teenagers?
not. I'm sad to say they're
No.
not. And I don't know how we kind of fix that really. I guess the method we use, it's fairly kind of robust and accurate, but a bit more fiddly. So not something I'd necessarily give to a younger person to go out and do. There's kind of little packets of chemicals you have to put in. There are other testing kits which are a bit more user friendly, which can be used by kind of school groups and things like that. And that's something I'd like to try and promote, because I really want to get kids involved with the river, and it's so important.
Yes. Have you heard of the Salisbury District Natural History Society?
I haven't been involved directly, but I know people
because they've been doing days. They've done a couple of days for children at the community farm in Salisbury, which have been really, really popular. And the one I went to with my young chap, involved going in the river. I mean, the kids were really enjoying that. But I mean, any samples they took would be a very dubious quality, obviously. But they certainly love the river. So is there something simple? Is there something simple that you could say to parents or families? Look out for this. Look out for that. Is there a simple guide to if it looks. If it looks grim, tell us or something. Do you see what I'm getting at?
Yeah. Well, I know that the river fly sampling, so where I know a lot of families do that together, and it's kind of a family activity. They'll go out once a month and do that together, and that's getting your little tray of bugs and getting your mayflies and your shrimps and kind of separating them. So that's good, and kids generally love trays of bugs. That's the one thing that we probably did at the community farm. And that's something. Both. Probably Wildlife Trust and the Rivers Trust do a lot of is going to schools and doing those sorts of activities, which I recommend if you have local schools, contact the Rivers Trust and get them into these sessions, because kids absolutely love it. Another one is it's not for everyone, but angling. So getting kids involved with that, it gets them out by the river, kind of nice and quiet and kind of watching nature. So that's again something I'm trying to promote locally, getting kind of younger kids involved with that as well. Yeah, anything you can do really, but it's not my kind of specialism. I wish I could do more with it.
Right, Bill, have you got more questions, or is that an existing hand?
That's a new hand.
That's a new hand. Okay, off you go.
Yeah, a couple of things. Firstly, is there one body that is responsible for coordinating everything that goes on rivers and streams in terms of improving the quality? Or is it down to individuals along the riverbank, which doesn't sound very good to me, or what?
You've got the Environment Agency, who are the regulator. So yeah, they are responsible. We have certain standards which come down from our time in Europe. So you've got the Water Framework Directive that says the river has to meet a certain standard, which we're not. No river is really. But yeah, they're regulating it. You also have Natural England, and because the rivers are designated, they have an input in what happens as well. But yeah, probably the Environment Agency is the key one that kind of coordinates everything, and they will have catchment coordinators for each river that kind of coordinate all those actions. But I guess at the same time, you have something that came in about 10 years ago called the catchment-based approach, which was kind of centralised government funding for local catchment partnerships that work together again to improve the catchment. So there's a Hampshire Avon one, there'll be a Bristol Avon one, and you can they'll all have websites, so you can look at that, and that will be key stakeholders, landowners, Environment Agency, water companies, that are all working together to improve the catchment. So they're really useful little groups.
So you couldn't say, if you look in this place and you look down the river, there's a coordinated plan of who's doing what all the way down the river.
Probably to different degrees. There are kind of catchment plans, yeah, but it might be focused on removing phosphorus in the river. They've on the Hampshire Avon, there's been a lot of work like restoration plans, like kind of multi-year restoration plans. So it tends to sort of go in phases. But yeah, because you have this Water Framework Directive, which is the targets the rivers need to meet. So within that, there's kind of reasons for not meeting good status, and then there's a coordinated plan to address where you can all those things, which agricultural pollution, habitat loss, things like that. So there's a plan within the Water Framework Directive.
So the water regulator doesn't have any say?
Do you mean the water companies, or
the regulator of water companies and
off what? Yeah, again, I haven't had much dealing with Ofwat, but as I understand,
I'm just trying to
they're more
get a feel for who is maintaining that thing throughout, who is responsible for making sure it all works out. Sounds like it's EA.
Yeah,
but it really isn't.
EA, and they do a really good job, and they're a bit resource strapped. But I think they're starting to get a bit more resource now. But yeah, lots of really good people at the EA.
Factual about 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay. And one little question: is there any reed bed technology going on all the way down the river, side of the river? Because reed bed, where you use reed beds to absorb pollutants.
Yeah. So Wessex Water have been fairly groundbreaking with this. So probably not so much in Wiltshire, but yeah, they have been fitting constructed wetlands at the back end of sewage treatment works. And yeah, something I want to promote more. I think if there's space, get one of these on every sewage work. So yeah, for people that don't know, it's obviously you've got a traditional sewage treatment process, and what you can do is put a kind of naturalized wetland at the end, which just cleans the water even more, just using nature, and it provides great habitat as well. So yeah, they're fantastic whenever I've seen them. So yeah, talk to your local water company. I'll ask them where yours is and see if you can get one.
That's for the water company. But what about farmers? Why can't the farmers do the same thing?
Well, I mean, they probably couldn't. They would probably be funding for that. So there's been a lot of work. You might have heard nutrient neutrality. So you're trying to kind of limit nutrients from new developments, so landowners can get money for creating wetlands blocking up ditches, things like that. So keeping those nutrients on the land. So yeah, there's
But
lots
then
of
they
fun
need to do
with that.
something with it. So putting reeds there would actually do the job.
Absolutely, and yeah, it's great for biodiversity. It's win-win.
Yeah. But how do you pass that message out and say, why aren't we doing this then? Who do I talk to? It's not the water
I
companies.
guess talk to
Water companies will be doing it.
landowners. Talk to the landowners, and there'll be lots of funding available for things like that.
Yeah.
Especially if it's in a kind of protected
How do we
site.
talk to all the landowners? How do we talk to all the landowners? Good, talk to the landowners. Good idea.
But also, a lot of landowners now, they're looking at these, with changes in subsidies, they're looking at other sources of income. So you've got,
Of course, yeah,
like
absolutely.
nutrient credits, you've got biodiversity net gain, you've got lots of things.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of landowners are looking at that already.
Okay.
I mean, I think that's one of the big issues following from this winter. I think farmers are just so aware of the amount of water they're storing on their land for everybody else, aren't they? And they want paying for it. They definitely want to be paid for doing that job. And then if they're going to get paid, if they're lobby to get paid for storing water, then obviously you get the more regulatory and demands on them as to how they do it, where they do it, the rest of it.
Well, if you look at some of the newer subsidies that are coming in for kind of making space for water, they're really quite generous compared to what they have been before. So hopefully that will help landowners out a bit, where they've got these flooded fields, because that provides a great resource for everyone. Storing water, great habitats. So they should be paid for it.
Can I just add? Sorry. Oh, Bill. Sorry.
Enid asked a question in the chat. I don't know if you got your answer, Enid. I think the answer is Adam.
While you've been talking, I've just worked that out, and I'm actually just writing an email to the email address I found that Adam from Adam's group. So thank you very much. It looks to me like the best way. Yeah.
And so, are you okay then, Enid? You're all right with what you're?
Yeah. I mean, if he agrees, it seems like that's the best way to get the kit you need. So.
Okay, and I just noticed that Tony had put in the chat that there's a reed bed system at Bushton. So,
okay.
Yes, it's
But remind us where Bushton is, Tony, please.
It's just outside Wootton Bassett. It's at the headwaters of the Bristol Avon. So it's Wessex Water are doing that. And I noticed this just very recently. They've been digging it out and renewing it, because I think they get over after a while, they get sort of clogged up and need to be refreshed.
Yeah, and you can look at water companies, they have a kind of 5-year investment cycle. So the next one starts next year. And I seem to remember Wessex Water have quite a few of these lined up across their patch. So there are more coming, but we could always have a few more.
And I think we're sort of getting to the end. But before we finish, Adam, as a Salisbury resident who's continually asked about the River Works project, do you think are you looking forward to debate it with bated breath to when that's finished? And how do you think, what impact do you think that's going to have on you in Downton, if any, or does it make any difference to your life in what you're doing, do you think?
Hasn't particularly affected me. I know there's been quite a lot of localized disruption. Having been involved with lots of big river schemes like that, it obviously can look like a real mess, and there's a lot of disruption, and it looks like devastation. But it's amazing how quickly it bounces back. And from what I've seen, I think it will be really good. And habitat-wise, there's fish passage improvements. I think it'll be worth the disruption. But it just takes a little while to kind of bounce back.
I mean, I suppose what I'd like to ask you, when I talk to people, is this thing we've been given, which I think is, in a way, it's all, we had a lot of things post Novichok. Is this a super duper scheme, or is it just a bog standard scheme we're getting there? Because it looks just amazing to me, what the engineering, but then
they clearly spent a lot of money on it, haven't they? But from what I've seen, ecologically it looks really good. I haven't really seen it. I saw a video of someone kayaking down there. I think that's the best I've seen of it. but yeah, ecologically it looks really good. And I think there's other new kind of access routes and new boardwalks and things, getting people kind of interacting with the river. So I think, yeah, it's on the bigger side of things, definitely. Yeah, not many kind of river schemes of that scale. So
No.
yeah, I think probably quite lucky.
So
to have
I'm
investment.
right to say to people, you know, hey guys, you've got something quite special here. You're the lucky ones. And we did have some people evacuated just in Ashley Road down the road here, in the worst of the flooding. But the Environment Agency said that it would have been a lot worse without what they'd already done. So you know, I don't want to be preaching good news and then everybody say what a rotten scheme is. That's just what I'm worrying about at this point. You know, keeping my fingers crossed.
I think, yeah, once the
there's not a sort of ribbon opening, and then there's some sort of torrent comes out and annihilates the town or something.
Yeah. No, I think everyone will be really pleased with it. But yeah, you just need to get the diggers off site, don't you, and let everything green up. And it's amazing how quickly it does happen.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think people will be really pleased with it. And yeah, salmon will be able to get past there. There's spawn there, and yeah, it'd be.
Well, there's otters, loads of pictures of otters. There's kingfishers. I don't know why the kingfishers are going to standing in the open in the draft. I don't know, but in the middle of the diggers, but they are. So a lot of reports of wildlife. Maybe because of lack of disturbance. You know, you've only got a few diggers to worry about rather than loads of dogs and things. You know, it's good like that. So people who stand around looking for things are seeing lots of things, but other people are saying, why did they bother? It's all so bad. They've cut down the trees, etc. So anyway,
well, it's been a long time, hasn't it? It's a lot of disruption.
It has been a long time coming. Yeah. So okay. So I'll keep preaching the good news, and it's going to be absolutely wonderful when it's all grown back here. Okay. So on that optimistic note, Adam, thank you.
Sorry, just.
Oh, sorry. Did you have another question, Tony?
Just
yes. No.
I was just thinking. Thinking about around Salisbury, obviously you've got all the water meadows there. What impact do they have in terms of cleaning up the water flow and also attenuating it? Because I think they use them partly now, don't they? But they're not to the full extent.
Yeah, I mean, if you ever look at LiDAR mapping, so kind of height mapping of the Avon Valley, it's crazy, like massive water meadow systems, most of which are kind of not used for their original purpose. You've got the ones in Salisbury at Harnham, which are maintained and used, and go down and have a look at when they're using them. It's really fascinating. So I think when they're being operated like that, they will take a lot of sediment out of the river. They'll take nutrients out of the river as well. Also negative impacts, so fish can get stuck in them. They can be juvenile salmon can get caught in there when they're trying to migrate. So there are concerns with them as well. But a lot of the water meadow systems now, they kind of operate as just natural floodplain. Whereas, I mean, you can have a whole talk on water meadows, and I recommend it. They're fascinating things, and they're kind of the way they work in terms of different hatches, kind of getting water over different bits of them. But a lot of them now are just kind of interesting floodplains rather than proper kind of floated water meadows.
If I can second that, Tony, the Harnham Water Meadows Trust, I know it's a long way to come, but it is a fascinating morning if you go out when they drowned the drowner. I think he's the drowner.
Drowner,
Hadrian Cook. He dresses up and he goes out and he performs the role of operating all the hatches and sluices. And it's a really fascinating morning. It's the Harnham Water Meadows Trust.
That's right.
Do that, and I think they did a couple of days in February where he went out and demonstrated it all. And he's a really expert guy, knows his stuff inside out.
Yeah, he's literally written the book on it. I recommend that.
He's written the book on it. Further up from me, up the Avon Valley, you've got the remains of a water meadow system, but it's just the Great Lake of Stratford with swans on it, so it's not performing as a water meadow. But I thoroughly recommend Hadrian's talk, because you understand, these water meadows were they were the service stations of their day, because that's where you got your grass, for when you changed the horses on the coaches and you needed fueling stops, so you needed to produce the grass and the hay for the mail to run. And when you changed your horses, it connects when you listen to one of Hadrian's talks, it connects it all up with the actual economics of how things worked in those days. Right, so are we done with questions? Does anybody else have a question? If not, thank you so much, Adam. We're going to just carry on with some sort of chat business now. You're welcome to stay if you like to. Whatever else we've got
I'll
to
leave
say.
you to it, that's okay. I need to go and put my children to bed. So
yes, that's a good idea. They do look quite small, so they should go to bed. Still at the same.
Yeah, but thank you very much. And yeah, any other questions after this, just get in touch.
Thank you so much.
Loveofwater.org, and yeah, just ping me an email.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, thanks a lot.
Very much. Thanks
Thank
for
you,
a really
Adam.
interesting talk. Thank you. Bye-bye. Right. So I think we had on the agenda debate on how to engage. I don't know if we've really covered that a lot in the questions.
I think we've got a few things to do, Claire.
Right.
And I've written down for us, from a group point of view, we should be talking to the council about what they're doing about supporting bathing water areas.
Right.
And also whether there's any way that we can get help to persuade them to get any funding out to them, to people like Adam, to help doing with river monitoring. I'm not sure what else as a group we can immediately do. So those are the two things I wrote down.
Okay.
But I guess the other thing is, as we had before, Enid asked where do we get monitoring kits from. I guess as individuals, we can persuade our local village or community to do the monitoring of their particular waterway. In fact, I might actually put that down as part of one of the things I'll do. Talk to my village, because we have a stream running through the village. Nobody monitors it at the moment.
Well, what I was thinking to do was looking at that map and thinking, being as how I'm in the area, was to see if I could rustle up more volunteers for Adam and his group. It seemed to me he needed more monitoring higher up the feed rivers. So
and money.
And money, yeah. Anyone else got any ideas about that? Oh, Margaret, you put your hand up.
Unmute. Yeah, what I picked out from his talk, apart from the fact that it's really, really interesting, and maybe we're not in such a bad place as I thought we were, but one of the things he mentioned was that anybody that's got a, what do you call them? Hole in the back of the garden where the effluent goes.
Septic tank.
Septic tank would be able to get help with improving the way it affects the area. Well, my horse lives on a farm, which the people use a septic tank. Now, the horses obviously just use the track and fields and whatever. But if there is more information that I can pass on to them about how to get, if there's a small grant going, I'm sure they'd be really happy, because horses, as you probably know, are horribly expensive. Yeah. But I didn't really pick up who it was that they would have to touch for said grant.
I'm just literally going to Google that. See if anything comes up. Right, I think that requires a little bit more research, Margaret. It's coming up for farmers. There's a lot of work going on to
the place where they place where they operate from is called Pound Farm. So,
Okay.
and it is a farm. It's a
Oh, okay.
blah acre farm with 30
Right.
horses living on a track system.
Mm.
But the humans at the moment live in a caravan with a thingamajig in the back.
Septic tank.
Septic tank. I'm really good at words.
Mm. There are cesspits and there are septic tanks.
Well, somebody comes along to do stuff with it on occasion.
Yeah, a septic tank is those great big round things with a sort of tube on the top, looking like a sort of Roman amphora that you see on the back of lorries, and that's just basically something that fills up. It may have a separate overflow, but it fills up and then it's pumped out. A cesspit is a big tank, if you like, that is supposed to be self-sustaining, and then you just dig it out after a great number of years. But they also overflow into.
I think the thing that looks a little bit like something in a chemistry set, only kind of bigger.
Yeah. Exactly. Okay.
That's a septic tank.
Yeah. So okay. So we need to flag that to do a bit of research, because
Yeah. Well, it may be that they've already done that, because I know that they do keep an eye out for things that they can get help with, because obviously they've got hedgerows and trees, and they've actually still got ridge and furrow.
Oh, right.
In the center of their track system.
Yeah.
There are, I think, about 3 or 4 of the fields that are still ridge and furrow, because they don't grow stuff there, apart from they allow the grass to grow, and they cut it annually, and the horses are allowed to wander on to it and fertilize it every now and then. So
yeah. And I think the problem is whether you're trying to keep on top of it or not. I think the landscape for farmers, financial landscape for farmers, is changing so rapidly that it's really difficult for them to keep on track. There was another round of improvements to the funding in January for the Sustainable Farming Initiative, but really it's quite a job for farmers to understand, and that's why they're getting really aggravated at the moment. Grumpy. They are very grumpy, because it's a very complicated and demanding system that they're now going into.
Aggravated or aggravated?
Aggravated, yes, they're aggravated.
Sorry, puns are us.
Puns are us, yeah. Okay. All right. Anybody else want
to? If you come across anything, let me know. But
I've made a little put myself an extra page.
But I will ping them anyway, and I'll come back if I get anything.
Yeah. Okay.
So I'll feed back in that they find.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody else want to say anything about that? So it's 7:30. I expect everybody's wanting to not be too much longer. So shall we move on to the idea of site visits, which was on our agenda? Bill, did you have any ideas about site visits?
No, I was just wondering whether other people had any ideas about what they would like to visit as a group on to do with land or water, even. Walk the Avon, maybe.
Yes. What do we think? Have we got the bandwidth for that?
We were offered a couple of walks somewhere near Melksham last year by Sue, what's her name? Who used to be with us.
Sue Deedigan.
Yeah. She said they were going to be starting river walks. So
okay.
Ask Sue if I'll ask Sue what she's doing.
Yeah, I need to contact her actually. The thing that came up last month while we were talking about food was the if I can just find it. Struggling with my email at the moment with my computer. Oh, okay. Was the sorry, I just can't get my email to work. Was the wonderfully named Crappers?
Oh, yeah.
Does that ring any bells?
Yeah.
Which I was just trying to get my note up. Hang on, I'll get back in a moment.
Wasn't that you, Tony?
Was it Tony? Suggested it.
He's left.
Oh, is he? So he has. Well, that's Tony. Okay. Crappers. Avon. Don't worry. We'll do that's. I think that's. There's a couple there. I guess from the silence from the rest of the group, we're no one's too excited about visiting us, right? Or none they can think of. If we offered a farm or something, I don't know if anyone would be interested, particularly if it was a like the one we went to last year, which was doing no dig. A very interesting visit.
So maybe we ought to widen it out in a different way, which is to say, are people interested in going on visits, or would they only want to go on a visit if it was something really interesting or really related to something that they were working on themselves? Being as how we're such a big county. I think we all enjoyed our visit to the farm, didn't we? When we did that a couple of years ago.
And we said we'd go and visit the lady who's running the Soil Association farm.
Helen Browning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where is that, Bill?
It's near Swindon, south of Swindon.
It's a long way for me.
Yeah. Mel and I got the same problem. We've got
close for me.
Good for you. No, what we want is really something really interesting in devices that we can.
Okay, so you catch a train from Salisbury to Westbury, and then from Westbury to Swindon. There you go, and you get picked up.
I'm really sorry. I don't know how to put the yellow hand up, so I'm just going to speak. I don't know that I necessarily wasn't interested in a river visit. I just didn't quite catch the what it was for, kind of, and all about. Just
I think it's a broader idea that it's more broadly as a group we did a visit to a farm a couple of years ago, and which was enjoyable because we actually got together and sort of walked around and sort of had a day out, so to speak, and whether we're interested in doing that sort of thing, or whether we're so busy and got so limited bandwidth that we haven't got time to do that this year.
So what did you sort of learn about when you did your day out?
It was about sustainable regenerative farming. So I mean, it was a really interesting visit in terms of the crops and the grazing and so on and so forth. And then we had a talk from the farmer. So that was a really good visit, which everybody enjoyed. I think everybody got a lot out of it. But it's whether we want to repeat something like that, or or we could take up Adam's suggestion and visit a sewage works, or visit Wessex
I'll
Water's
just say
great reed bed.
I'd be happy to visit a river if that was on the agenda.
Okay. We'll put a couple forward and see what we
can think of a few options. Yeah.
Have we got a Elms next month, Claire?
Sorry?
Have we got the updating on Elms next month?
I did a brief update before you arrived, I think.
No, not Elms, the other Elms.
Oh,
Environmental land management scheme?
As in land management. Are we doing that next month?
I don't know. I'm just asking the question.
Are you requesting it to be done next month?
Why not?
Okay.
Why not? And there's a lot.
All
You
right.
said there's been a lot of changes since last
Yes.
we talked. We're talking about
Well, I
it.
think it would be topical with regard to feeding into the election work, actually, because the
Precisely.
agriculture issues become has
Yeah,
come up the
yeah,
agenda so much.
But
There's
why
massive
not? Why not
controversy
say
in
that is
Wales,
why we're
and
doing it?
yeah, okay. So that would be a good thing. It would be good to find somebody who's a bit more on the sharp end of that, but I haven't got anybody in mind for that at the moment.
Margaret's got a hand up. Is that still an old hand, Margaret?
No, it's a new one.
Right.
Yes, sort of going back a few minutes, there was talk about going to a farm that has a river going through it, so that we could see a farm with a river. It would be really, really good if we could go to a farm that has a river and reed beds, because that does the yes, sewage works all in one, doesn't it? Because that's how they did sewage works before we had sewage works.
Yes. I think the way to get onto that is to contact somebody in North Wiltshire, I think, because it didn't sound like anybody down here had that. But I don't know that it's that uncommon. But we, Wessex Water are doing them.
We could ask Adam.
Yeah,
Pardon?
that would be good.
We could ask Adam.
Yeah.
To be in the south of the county, but we could ask Adam.
Yeah.
And
I
Tony
thought
for the north.
I thought he said he didn't know of any.
And he mentioned a few. So I think he knows them, but they may not be in
Sorry,
his
did
patch.
I miss that? He said he didn't know them, but he did. Oh.
I think he mentioned a couple.
Oh, okay.
But they may not be in his patch.
Yeah, maybe, yes. I thought he was suggesting there were ones in the north of the county, maybe in liaison with Wessex Water, because certainly when I was up at Cologne, actually, on another thing, I've been up to Cologne a lot, which is where one of those tree planting clusters is, elm planting clusters is, on their sustainable Cologne, Green Cologne Day, whatever it was. There were Wessex Water people there, so I've got their contact details. So
So we'll make an effort to find that.
Yeah.
Somewhere for a visit later in the year.
Yeah, I mean that
Good
would
target.
be a nice.
Like
that would
idea.
be a very nice visit to do a farm visit for somebody who's got these things in operation or under construction or whatever to show us what they're doing and to talk to us about how they're funding it, because that's really important. Gail, you've got a patient hand up.
Yeah. Just to say that I went on one of the tours around the sewage works in Chippenham last autumn. It was part of the Heritage Open Days week or weekend or whatever it was. So obviously they were all genned up for groups of people on a regular scheduling. But I found it incredibly interesting because I had no idea how complicated the whole process or how many processes there were that everything went through. And towards the end, then they actually showed us what was going into the river, which did look crystal clear, but obviously they didn't get a test strip out and test the actual quality in front of us. But they appeared to be very open, very knowledgeable, and they were asked lots of questions by the public. So I think that for anybody who hasn't been to a water treatment plant, they would find it interesting, as well as the opportunity to see the process and then actually ask questions about it, you know. But that was in Chippenham.
We went to the one in Westbury. Yeah.
No, Frome.
Yes,
It
was
was
true.
Frome,
Yeah,
yeah.
say the people on the ground are very enthusiastic, desperately trying to do their main thing, but sadly the upstream investment, pardon the pun, is half the problem. And really one of their biggest issues is just that whole problem of floodwater. the sewage system can't cope with it, and they just get overwhelmed that it drowns all their processes.
And the Environment Agency is so underfunded that they're not doing the checks they're supposed to do, and they can't respond when they are in difficulties. And I think they were pointing out, although phosphates are a real issue from farmland, actually more phosphates are coming from sewage, which come from our washing machines and from the additives in the food that we eat. And I think this is a real education piece in what we could do to, reduce the poisons that are going into the water that they then have to take out.
Yes, I mean that I would be very interested to know in terms of the products which we use. A block drain issue here, and then you're thinking about what products can I use. I mean, have we seen guides to the products you should and shouldn't use with regard to clearing your drains and so on? I don't know.
The most important things for drains is not to put wet wipes down and not to put fats down, because fat is the biggest cause. So that should be separated out and not put into your dishwasher and not put into your washing up water. But also, I think I really applaud groups like Great Bedouin who are doing water management in their area, and we can do so much in how we manage the water that lands on our land, on our own houses, and having it soak away into our gardens or through big water troughs, as we saw in Rawton on a Green Open Church visit. We went on, we can actually do stuff ourselves and educate people to do, as well as obviously the water companies do have to do more, and the infrastructure's in a terrible state, but at least we can reduce what goes into it.
Well, I'm doing my bit. I've got some Great Bedouin coming to our annual parish meeting, talking about exactly what they've done in Great Bedouin. So
perfect.
Hopefully we'll have a bit more in our area in the way of, dealing
Well,
with
maybe
flooding.
you'd like to come and talk at one of these meetings with it all in.
Sorry?
Maybe you'd like to come and talk in one of these meetings about
What, me?
When is that, Mel? When is that, Mel? When is your annual meeting?
That's on May the yeah, do you want to come? It's
Well, I sort of crossed my mind.
yeah. I think it's May the, let me just check a second. May the 22nd, Wednesday.
Where are you based, Mel?
Alderbury, near Salisbury.
Down the road, aren't you?
Just down the road from Clare. So yeah, so I think she's talking for 15 minutes and then questions, because we've got a few other things, but yeah, really interesting that'll be.
So maybe you could ask them if they talk to this group.
What, Great Bedouin? Well, it's Sylvia Wyatt is the contact.
Oh, is it? She's in our group.
Yeah, she's in our group. So yeah, she's very feisty lady. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that talk. Yeah.
Got a feisty husband as well, hasn't he? Okay, I've got to go now, Claire.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Okay. Right. Well, I think we've covered it. I've covered what I wanted to cover. Has everybody else done what they want to do? Thank you all for coming. And thank you for bearing with me with my camera problems, my broken laptops, and my pathetic attempts to show you a map with post-its. I struggle on with my tech problems, but we'll get through in the end. And thank you everybody, and see you again soon. The only other thing I was going to say is I am still working on the follow-on, I should say, from last month's meeting about food, and just watch this space on our discussion about food and what we wanted to do about that. But that's a whole other can of worms, so I shan't go any further on that this evening because we want to stop. So thanks very much. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Claire. Brilliant.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Claire.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Bye.